Have a realistic understanding of your current situation. If you are contemplating a 12-step recovery program, you are probably already in a bad way. Nevertheless, it is important to be convinced that you can no longer control or effectively limit the amount of alcohol you consume. If you have any lingering thoughts that you can, or that one day you might be able to regain control, or perhaps even think it's just a bad phase you will soon get through, then go no further. Take the time you need to prove to yourself beyond doubt, one way or the other. Recovery will be easier to accept if you have this foundation from the start. In this regard, I would highly recommend the use of Real Al's website, www.real-als-alcoholism.com. Use it to determine your current level of risk and apply Real Al's measures to motivate the necessary reduction in consumption. Should this not work for you, then conclude once and for all you don't have control over the amount you drink. It may also help to remember that alcoholism is both progressive and fatal, so you are literally contemplating whether to live or die. As harsh as this seems, it is the truth. 2. Minimize fallout. Dependence doesn't just affect the poor sod who has it. It is unquestionably a family illness that is best addressed with their understanding, if at all possible. In the current climate, with so many different opinions on cause and effect, it isn't surprising hostilities prevail towards the alcoholic. Nevertheless, damage to relationships can often be repaired if, but only if, those involved are prepared to move forward with open minds and open hearts, albeit guardedly. It may well be the case, however, that by the time the penny drops and a person realizes they need help and seeks help, damage caused can be so severe relationships may never heal. Should this apply, the best course of action is for the alcoholic to get well through recovery, and perhaps at some future point, gradual improvements may encourage those harmed to consider reconciliation. This can only be done by those affected, not the alcoholic. All the alcoholic can do is, when the time is right, offer amends by apologizing for their part in inflicted misery. The alcoholic's best course of action, as painful as this seems, is to focus on getting well. Undoubtedly, the alcoholic has already made many futile promises to change, so naturally, suspicion is heightened and to be expected. Long-term recovery is the only hope for change. Understand that recovery is not a temporary fix or first aid measure to help you drink moderately. I have listened to many in recovery who would still like to be able to drink moderately, to be normal, so to speak, but circumstantial evidence overwhelmingly proves that once control of intake is lost, it never returns. Concrete proof exists that it doesn't matter how long a person remains sober. On picking up another drink, they become far worse than when they left off. I am not aware of any exceptions to this during my 17 years of recovery, or of stories of it occurring before that. Sadly, on the contrary, I am only too aware of the consequences of picking up another drink, i.e., a rapid demise into the abyss and death. It is important to understand, therefore, that recovery by necessity has to be a lifetime journey of avoiding alcohol and of implementing changes to the way you interact with the world so as to avoid relapse. The good news is you only need to apply it one day at a time. Indeed, despite the seemingly unrealistic and overwhelming nature of the 12 steps, with time it does get easier and the rewards are disproportionately worth it. But please make no mistake, there are overwhelming odds against you staying sober, as societal pressures to drink beyond your own cravings are immense. A huge problem requires a huge solution, so it is highly recommended that you avail yourself of the support of others in recovery. To that end, meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous are priceless, as they offer reassurance you are not alone with this illness. Whatever people say about it not being an illness, just remember, it is so defined by the World Health Organization. Money won't buy you freedom from addiction. I have met many victims of alcoholism that believe money will facilitate their escape. Trust me, it won't. Private rehab facilities are expensive and implement in part what is in reality a free and universal 12-step approach. Whilst money can secure clinical intervention, privacy, a safe environment away from the day-to-day pressures, intense support and counselling, it doesn't take away the primary requirement, which is that all necessary work has to be done by the addict. It is the alcoholic who has to be willing to work on changes. I have met many who fall into the trap of assuming their wealth will somehow exclude them from that. In my experience, clients with this misconception only end up wasting time and money, often relapsing soon after discharge. Prison turned out to be my rehab and worked far better for me than many that I've seen writing fat checks. This was simply because I was ready, willing, and wanted change. All the rest was free. Shelve any contempt prior to investigation. Reason, intellect, qualifications, religious doctrine, status, occupation. For many who begin a 12-step program, the biggest barrier to healing is often one or more of the above interferences. I am only too aware of many PhDs, professors, and clever dicks who ended up committing suicide because they insisted on intellectualizing the process of recovery and missing the point. In normal walks of life, of course, we all apply rationale and logic, but recovery, whilst having sound reasons for each step, involves much of what resides within the realm of faith, and that naturally defies logic. Often people also make the hasty mistake of assuming that they've embarked upon some religious quest or cult, but that couldn't be further from the truth either. There is a spiritual dimension to the 12 steps, but it's totally open to individual interpretation. There is no doctrine to be endured or preached. Indeed, I know individuals who have been sober many, many years that have no spiritual beliefs at all, but still live better lives. The point is, recovery isn't religious. Okay, it isn't how I choose to proceed, because seeking a spiritual dimension to my life has helped me find peace of mind. The thought of being sober without it, whilst fine for some, wouldn't satisfy me. The fact is, I would simply have swapped one form of hell for another. The key to this was to simply keep an open mind and not let any aforementioned interferences short-circuit the system. Get honest. Part of the foundation of recovery is about getting honest. I know the very mention of this word causes much confusion and anxiety, giving rise to questions like, should I tell my partner how much I really spend on clothes, or the extent of my credit card use, etc.? However, the honesty I'm referring to is far more fundamental than that. It is about the relationship one has with oneself. First and foremost, it is about becoming comfortable in one's own skin. In effect, it is the mirror image and opposite of being in denial, the classic, albeit non-official symptom of all addictions. In reality, at the point of my rock bottom, I had reached my worst ebb, in that I was in poor physical and mental health. I was weighed down by excessive psychological baggage from actions in drink, including guilt, resentment, self-pity, intolerance, an overinflated sense of self-importance, and a shortage of patience. I was also selfish, egotistical, and manipulative. Yet I believed my problem was caused by everyone else. Looking at myself in a new and honest light wasn't easy, but being willing saved my life. The next step was to make an internal pact to stop being my worst enemy and become my best friend. So I called a truce and began to build a fresh understanding of me. From that point on, there was to be no internalization of harshness, criticism, or judgment, just compassion. Motivation for this change came because I knew I had an illness, and this process would help me, and indirectly be beneficial for everyone else. Evidence for this was clear to see in the lives of many who were already well into recovery. I found this very reassuring and a great comfort. Adopt an effective pill for everyday life. Wouldn't it be great if anyone affected by alcoholism or the ups and downs of life could just pop into their doctor and get a prescription? I, for one, would have been ecstatic if medical science had the answer to these problems. The truth is, Any current form of chemical intervention, including alcohol, only postpones facing up to reality. The good news is there is a new pill that works, freely available, which doesn't have anything to do with pharmacology. This pill is best described as new perceptions in loving life. The alcoholic benefits greatly from modifying outlook on life, including adjustment of attitudes. I know this sounds imposing, but it has been found essential if one is to acquire and enjoy a new life that doesn't need chemical stimulation or obliteration. Being part of a recovery group helps tremendously in adopting these subtle changes, and results are experienced very quickly. Just as an example, here are a few phrases that can help adjust thinking in testing times, bearing in mind most challenges present as concerning either people, places, or things. Easy does it. Why overload or make unrealistic expectations of yourself? Keep it simple. Why overcomplicate life more than it already is? Live and let live. There's room for all our differences and our opinions. By the grace of God, like it or not, most of our lives are beyond our control. First things first. For recovering alcoholics, this means staying sober. Let go and let God. We are responsible for doing our best, not the outcome. How important is it anyway? Is the issue bothering you life-threatening? Replace fear with faith. Over my life, I have known many types of fear, including financial insecurity, loss of status, aging, not feeling successful, loved, liked, or appreciated. All it took was one or more of these to undermine my sense of worth. Advertising, marketing, and news coverage promoted greater dissatisfaction and fear, imprisoning my thoughts. It's therefore easy to understand why I was full of suspicion and mistrust when I first sought recovery. Having a science background also curtailed my outlook and attitude, requiring demonstrable evidence to any claims that were made. I didn't believe people when they said that they'd been sober X number of days, months, or years and felt better for it. I thought people were lying when they said that they were living a better life without alcohol. It was easy to determine that none of these people were like me, so I was obviously special. I now realize, of course, all this was the outward expression of fear. Fear had me firmly in its grasp and had established an impenetrable skin that kept me prisoner. My addiction would have closed me down completely had I not been desperate for help. So in spite of myself, I kept attending recovery meetings, steadfast in seeking out a solution. Slowly, the intensity of my fear faded, allowing a flicker of light to illuminate my darkest mental recesses. This reassurance came as a blessing. In time, it became evident life was slowly improving, which strengthened my sense of hope. It was a gradual process, but it just kept getting better. Cravings that had entrapped me in a cycle of repetitive drinking became a thing of the past. This meant I no longer generated further mayhem and misery. Gradually, I began to clear away the aftermath of my former destructive self, which strengthened the foundation for a better future. Before I knew it, I became conscious of being part of a much greater realm of existence that enabled me to easily switch fear with faith. I too became aware of the miracle of sobriety and a life transformed to one worth living. Prioritize for success. Experience has shown that relapse into active alcoholism often results from not prioritizing recovery. I totally understand doubts in making this paramount, but failure to do just that is literally dicing with death. I've met many clients who maintain their careers, businesses, spouse or offspring, or any number of considerations are more important. This is dangerous because by not putting sobriety at the top of your list, you risk relapse, often with the loss of everything anyway. Of course, we all need money. It's nigh on impossible to survive without it, and there's nothing wrong with having lots of it if that's our path or desire. What's important, I believe, certainly for me, are my motives, the sacrifices I make, how I prioritize materialism against things like health, love, dedication to others, integrity, honesty, humility, etc. If the balance isn't right, or I rank incorrectly, discontent ensues and I lose my way. Experience confirms this will only lead to another drink with corresponding mayhem. Therefore, whilst money is certainly a priority for most people, it isn't as important as we think, certainly not when it comes to recovery from alcoholism. Another common pitfall is going into recovery for unscrupulous reasons. What I mean by this is to appease someone else or to pacify a loved one or employer, etc., i.e. to get them off your back. This misguidedness only leads to further misery. Neither are self-imposed conditions workable. For example, I'll go into recovery if you do this or that. It is a big mistake to think that you can use 12 steps to control anyone else. Recovery has to be undertaken solely because you have come to realize you must change yourself. Enjoy the benefits and be an inspiration to others. I have been very fortunate to survive alcoholism and find a better way of living than in those former years of hedonistic overindulgence. I'm full of gratitude for the 12-step process of recovery that brought it about. Perhaps so the greatest gift has been in witnessing the transformation and recovery of many others. To relate to those similarly affected by alcohol's hidden venom, to feel their pain whilst at their darkest ebb, is both humbling and compassionate, because you know they also stand at the threshold of freedom too. There is no greater expression of love than to be present for another human being, and my journey and sobriety enables me to do just that. By being sober and grateful for another 24 hours, I can stand as a living example that misery is optional, and we all have that choice. So when you decide you have had enough of active alcoholism, of inflicting misery and grief, of being sick, lost in despair, take hope that it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Begin your recovery one day at a time, and before you know it, your life will be transformed, and you will also become an inspiration to others, the inspiration that naturally resides hidden within you.